Let's talk about this unique prototype. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. It's July 4th, one of the few days where it's very apropos to talk about the Gibson map guitars. I found the map guitar that was used for the photo shoot in all of Gibson's advertising. You sometimes still see it even get used today. So feel free to check out that information for all the details on these map guitars. Because for today, we're just gonna focus on this one. It's unique because it's actually one of the prototype map guitars. So Poster Child was not actually marked prototype. This one very lightly is. So let's do a quick crash course on these map guitars in case you missed the last episode. There's two main versions of the map guitar. One that has 3 controls with a toggle switch right underneath your tailpiece, and then the other one looks like this. It has 4 full knobs, and the toggle switch actually goes all the way in the back towards California. That's how the bodies are done up. The 3 knob versions tend to have mahogany necks, and then the 4 knob ones tend to have 3-piece maple. From there, things get thrown out the window. You can find 3 different bridge styles, from this wrap tail piece to the stop bar tune-o-matic like we have on here. Sometimes you can find the odd K-layered version. You can find both satin and glossed finished ones, usually in natural. However, there were a few done up in exotic colors like stars and stripes. Plain headstocks, as well as ones with crowns. Nashville, Tennessee, or Kalamazoo, Michigan produced. Many a different tuner choices. So if you say, hey, I own a map guitar, I'm gonna ask you, okay, which version? There's so many different ones. I purchased this one from Carter Vintage Guitars from the Hutchins estate. They held on to these about 12 years after his passing, and that's when I picked them up. I've had this one for a couple of years at this point. But this must have been a prototype of the version that happened to use Kluson tuners with the mahogany neck and the desirable stop bar tailpiece setup on these with the tune-o-matic bridge, and it appears to be more of a semi-gloss finish on this one. And of course, the 3-knob variation. There are quite a few marked prototype map guitars out there. But if you're not familiar with the map guitar history, they actually started out as an Epiphone promotional guitar. In 1982, Gibson decided to make Epiphones in the USA again. They offered the Spirit and Special model. The Spirit was kind of an interesting double cut shape. I actually like those. And the Special was based on an SG. They all had these cool wrap tail pieces. That's why most of the maps were also like that. There was at least one documented contest that said, hey, come try one of these new USA Epiphones at the store and be entered into a contest to win a visit to Kalamazoo. And eventually Gibson started to produce them under the Gibson branding because a lot of dealers wanted them in their store. It was just kind of a cool show-off piece. And even yet today, that's kind of just how they are. Shops like to have them because people go, oh, that's cool, USA-made Gibson, American-made world played, in the shape of the United States. That's funny. Or if you're a gigging musician that's like, yeah, I play a lot of 4th of July gigs, get me one of those. Otherwise, yeah, a very limited market for something like this outside of a collector. But that doesn't mean that Gibson didn't reissue them in the mid-2000s under the Made in China Epiphone branding. But there were also some 90s and 2000s reissues in some pretty exotic colors. After 2008, when James Hutchins retires, the guy who carved all these bodies out, Gibson has not made another one that I'm aware of anyway. So they're just kind of a piece of unique history at this point. The very last one made super cool. Got a spruce body with a quilt maple top. I'm hoping one day we'll document that one on the show. So that's a quick crash course. Let's go ahead and throw this version of the map guitar onto the workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs. Well, I'm glad I started last year with the Poster Child, because this one's just a whole bunch of bad news. So our pickups in here. I took one good look at them before I flipped them over, and I said, those are modern, and I was not wrong. Looks like some sort of a 57 Classic, could be a burst bucker. Same thing is true in the bridge position. So here's my theory. I learned this after making the Poster Child video. That guitar was never functional until about a month before I purchased it. The family thought it being a functional guitar would make it sell quicker. All the parts on that particular one were originally put on it, but the channel route for the wires was never actually drilled, so they drilled it and made it a functional guitar based on the items that were actually installed on the guitar for the photo shoot. That would also explain explain why it had that raw finish. Because for the photo, there'd be no glare like you would have if there was even a satin finish on it. So knowing that and seeing this, I bet this was very similar. It didn't actually have parts and they just put something on it that they had. The same thing's true over here. This is just a modern day bridge. And this just feels like a regular full weight tailpiece. Another more modern part are the speed knobs, because you gotta remember, this was all early 80s, right before they switched the materials that they're making their plastics out of that coincidentally don't age anymore. So those are not correct for this one either. Readings within the circuit, 8.2 k ohms in the bridge, neck is 8, and the middle, just for fun, 4.06, so that tells me they're likely burst buckers. The neck pickup cavity looks kind of strange. It actually appears to have a misshapen long neck tenon to it. You can see a little bit of glue seepage right there. I don't think the originals were like that, but I haven't actually torn apart a regular production one. And here's a look at our bridge pickup cavity. But these are crafted with pancake bodies. So you got 2 pieces of mahogany and then a center stripe of maple. That's to help make the body stronger, because Maine is known for falling off, especially Florida. And that's actually happened on this example once before. It was knocked off and re-glued by Hutchins. Here we can take a look at our kind of more simplified body. If you go back to the poster child episode, you'll see they detailed Michigan a little bit more. And this one's got some impressions, nicks and dings, some gouges right here by the top. But it was a prototype. They were just trying to figure out what they wanted to do, because I believe the 4-knob version came first, and then this was a later revision, maybe to save some money in the costs, and get the toggle switch in a location that actually makes sense that you can get to, rather than all the way down here, without the craziness needed to put it up there. We can move on from our body to our mahogany neck this time with the rosewood fretboard. You can definitely tell this is from the early 80s because of the very distinct style of dot inlays they use in this time period. I love it, and I'm not normally a fan of dot inlays. The type of acrylic that they were using, it just has so much character, and they're a little bit smaller than usual. They look great on like studio customs and studio standards, but I will admit they have a better appearance when you have a bound fretboard. You've got kind of a interesting wood grain pattern right here around the 5th fret, but nice rosiness color in general. Now, as far as fret wear, I mean, it looks like somebody played it a little bit, but nothing too much past your cowboy chords. Got a 1.7-inch nut width, 2.07 by the 12, 0.81 first fret neck depth, and that increases to 0.98 by the 12. It's a slimmer neck profile, but it's very rounded. It's a super nice C shape with a little bit more meat on the bone. The contour gauge really shows you what I'm talking about. So first fret, you see how it's just a little bit more humped than usual? Then by the 12th fret, it's very rounded. You don't have much shoulders at all on this one. But now the headstock. Truss rod has a lot of thread showing. That's at limited adjustability, unfortunately. It's pretty tricky to move, but does it move? Yeah, something to know about for sure. But our headstock has the Gibson mother of pearl logo, but no crowns. But what I found interesting is the space between the O and in the middle of the B are like carved out. I wonder if they were experimenting with something there, making the logo 3D, or if that's a manufacturing error of some sort. Not gonna lie, I was feeling kind of bummed we didn't have the Tim Shaw PAFs in here anymore, but what I found in here made it worth it. We've got Hutch's signature dating it to 1980, way before these things came out, so maybe these were in the works a lot longer than we thought. Maybe Hutch put that in after and he got the date wrong? I don't know. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But having that in the guitar is very cool since he's the guy who made all the maps. So to make that easier to see, I have reinstalled the 3-way toggle switch a little bit differently. You can see all the router marks that he used to create this cavity. As far as the rest of the wiring, it's Gibson branded pots, so that is not correct. However, they look pretty old, so I don't think that shop did this like the other one. Unfortunately, I lost their contact over the past year and I never got to call them and talk to them. But it wouldn't surprise me if this was finished sometime in the 2000s based on everything else we've seen. But it's interesting to see how the route also changed between the two different body styles. So this is the 4-knob one. It has to be a little bit longer, obviously, to accommodate that. But there's the drill run versus how clean this one looks and the 4-knob. Now, if you're curious what this is it some sort of replica? No, this is an actual new old stock body that was purchased from the Maudie Moore estate. If you missed that unboxing episode, I actually have 2 of those, but the other one was not routed for anything. It says, use original map neck only. So here you can see the tenon. So that tells me that the necks also change between the two different body styles. And that's kind of what we saw here today. But you can also see your pancake construction within our cavity. Kind of reminds me of the E2 series. I just love layered woods. It's so cool. Sadly, pancake bodies get a lot of hate, but things like the M3 Deluxe have a really cool look to them. But here's what the output jack looks like. It's one of the long barrel styles. Got our strap button at the bottom. And oh, Hutch, you did it to me again. I have to sit and play this one because there's no other strap button. That's like his signature thing for the ones that he kept. The poster child one, when they added the back plates, you could leave one screw out a little bit to get away with it. But this one, nope, no top strap button. You can also see this one has a lot of glue seepage where he put the neck in, and there's like an area that doesn't have that. It got dinged up being transported around and talked about. It almost looks like Florida's made of a new piece of wood. However, when you look at it on the edge, the grain lines up. So I don't know what's with the top. Maybe he just spliced a new layer on, like a really thin veneer because it got like dinged up or something. Texas has definitely taken a little bit of a beating. But all things considered, I don't think this one was ever played that much because the satin finish, for the most part, besides some scratching in that area, it hasn't really been buffed up. Especially not even on the neck. I wonder if it was like a prototype finish as well, trying to keep the satin intact even after playing. That's what's unique about this too. You do not have any type of formal serial number, just a very vaguely stamped Gibson original prototype marking. It's a shame it's so light because that's my favorite thing about Norland era prototypes is they have that really cool dog bone stamp. It's stylized perfectly. And yeah, now that I look at the tuners, those were definitely a little bit more modern as well. I'm kind of ashamed I didn't notice all this stuff earlier. I was just so hyped up and pumped that I found the poster child last year. I didn't really even care about this one. Because sure, prototypes are cool, but not as cool as the poster child. But having a personal Hutchins guitar is way more important than period correct electronics. Especially since it's possible it never even had them to begin with. All said and done, the United States only weighs 8 pounds, 2.7 ounces. Not too shabby. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how it sounds with these pickups. Well, I found a way to use it with a strap. Might not be the best for the tuner, but I just hung it on by there. So there's our mandatory song out of the way. So far I think these pickups actually sound nice and chimey. go. What do I think about this prototype? This thing sounds awesome. It's got that really open, airy, but yet still gritty sound to it. Yeah, no problem with these pickups. I'm not interested in putting Tim Shaw's in here. So when I bought this one, I wasn't all that excited for it. Again, I was all for the poster child, and I just kind of let this one sit around, and I was very disappointed when I threw it on the workbench and found that, yeah, this was likely put together somewhere in the 2000s, and it was just some sort of a husk before then. But now that I've played it, yeah, this is the one I would take out. It's great. It's a little bit more finished than the poster child and has a little bit less of a storied history and past. But ultimately, if you're thinking, should I buy one of these? I mean, I think it's great for a gig. If you can find one that sounds as good as this, you're not gonna have any problems. But it is a very niche, more so collector's item. Now, as far as how comfortable they are to play, this one, when I sat down with it, it's a little bit edgy. It does get a little uncomfortable, but when you stand and play it, it's perfectly fine, especially if you have a strat button. So either a stage guitar or a collection conversation piece, I would suggest getting one if it's the right price. I wouldn't suggest paying too crazy for non-prototype, historically significant ones. All right, troglodytes, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day, and you might even enjoy this next one.